This is Paul Ravella from Pro Physique, and I guess I just decided to pull the camera out tonight because I felt like addressing a question I got via email immediately. I have a lot of video topics that I want to do eventually. I get thoughts and I get questions frequently, and it starts the wheels are churning in my head, and I think I want to do a video on this topic. But this particular email really struck a chord with me, and so I felt like responding to it actually quite quick, because I feel like it's a very common question I get, and it's mostly from like close friends who have seen me go through this transition in my life, and they're interested in how I did it. But this particular person is somebody I don't really know. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the question. And mind you, it's 11 o'clock at night. I've got a lot of work to do. I'm in the middle of my coaching stuff. I'm literally sitting at my desk working, doing emails, and I've decided to pull the camera out, point it at myself, and just discuss this topic for however long it needs to be discussed, and then I'm going to throw it on the Mac here, edit it, and probably get it out. So it's going to be pretty raw. There's going to be no like crazy editing. My last video I did about my West Coast trip, going to Los Angeles, going to Las Vegas, going to Gold's Gym Venice, going to Barbell Brigade, going to the USA Championships, and watching Samantha and Cecily and Emily compete, Emily winning her pro card. That video was a lot of clips and a lot of editing, and I added music. This video, just going to be point and shoot, because I want to address this question. I'm going to ignore my phone. So here's the question. I'm just going to read the email as I first got it. Mr. Ravella, hello, my name is Michael Wilcher. I'm a student and aspiring bodybuilder, competing for the first time this fall. I hope you don't think I'm wasting your time by emailing you about something other than coaching, but I actually have a question about how yourself have progressed in life. I know you started in IT, information technology for those that aren't familiar, and eventually crossed over to coaching physique athletes pursuing an exercise degree. Could you please shed some light on how you did that? You see, I'm a student, and I'm at a bit of a crossroads. I always thought I wanted to coach bodybuilders someday, and I still think I do. However, I also have a huge interest in technology, but I just can't seem to decide which career path is for me, at least in the immediate future. I would graduate much earlier with the IT route, which makes me think I might like to do something similar to what you did. Would you mind just briefly illustrating how that process went for you, from the starting in IT to going back to school for exercise degree? You'd really be helping me out, and I apologize if this is the wrong email to use to inquire about something not directly related to physique. Thank you in advance, and also thank you for being a respectable member of the fitness industry that actually has integrity in what he does. So you buttered me up there with some nice things. It's odd to actually think I'm a part of the fitness industry. That wasn't actually something I ever set out to do. But I'm honored that people think that I'm a part of the fitness industry, and that possibly I'm having a good impact on people's lives. So let's first start out with how things went for me. So I loved fitness at an early age, even in high school, even my junior year. I loved lifting weights, and I played sports. So the two kind of went hand in hand. I was able to lift weights and play sports all through college, and I played baseball in college. And my passion for lifting weights really kind of took off in college, just because I had access to the gym all the time for the first time in my life. In high school, I kind of only had access to the gym during the school year. I never had a gym membership in high school. We would kind of have some weights at the house and do that kind of joking around kind of thing. But in college is when I was actually able to be fairly consistent. And then in the summers, I would get a job and join a gym for the summer. So my passion kind of picked up then. But understand that when I was in college, and this would have been the late 90s, there was no such thing as coaching or bodybuilding coaching or anything to do with physique coaching. It just didn't exist. I wasn't even aware of it. I remember thinking it would be really cool to study what I love as far as exercise, but the only career that I was aware of that involved exercise was being a PE coach. Literally like going to a high school and blowing the whistle and making kids play basketball and stretch. That's what I thought of, and I thought that seemed like the most dead-end job ever to me. So when I got out of college and I moved to Fort Lauderdale, and I got a job as a bartender and a server, that was when I really was able to start hitting the weights. I was eating better because I was working at a restaurant. I was going to the gym every day religiously. I was at Gold's Gym, surrounded by the biggest, baddest bodybuilders. I mean, there was several IFBB pros there. I had a good group of friends that loved to lift. And most of my influence at that time was either talking to people in the gym or reading magazines or books on the topic of bodybuilding. But I still never really grasped it. I really never understood the whole picture of nutrition and training. And I certainly never thought it would be a career. Because at this point, fitness to me was, if you wanted a career in that, you were a personal trainer. And it never seemed exciting to me to sit in the gym all day, wait for clients to show up, let them talk to you about their troubles, and then tell them they need to do 12 reps. And then tell them to do another. It still doesn't get me excited. The thought of being a personal trainer. So again, fitness coaching never came into my mind. Now during this time when I was in Fort Lauderdale, I was first introduced to IT through a friend who was working for Oracle, doing database stuff. And when he got into that and I started seeing him have success, and he was able to quit the bartending business and take on this new life where he was stable, worked good hours, had a good job, was happy. It was something that resonated with me. So I took a job with a company actually in Palm Harbor, Florida, and I started as a phone consultant for a phone company. I was basically, I don't know if you guys are familiar with AOL, but they had a long distance phone program where if you signed up for AOL, you could get the AOL long distance package and save money on your long distance bill, because back then you had a local and a long distance bill. They were separate. Well, when I started with that company, it was at a very good time because they were just starting to expand. And this is when I realized something about myself. I've always been willing to do more than other people. I've always been willing to say yes when others would possibly say no. And they asked for volunteers for overnight shifts to help come in and literally tear out all the desks and install cubicles, and I jumped at the chance. We came in I think at 10 at night and we worked till 6 in the morning. So I worked my regular job, and then that first night I showed up probably an hour early. Part of the reason being one of my friends worked in the IT department, and I really liked what I saw him doing, and he really seemed to enjoy his work. So the first night I showed up an hour early. I think that benefited me. I think the director of the IT department at the time saw that. And after a full week of working overnights, literally running cables, making cables, I think I picked up on a lot of these things fairly quickly. I wasn't that great with computers, but I certainly wasn't afraid of them. And I consider myself fairly intelligent. So I picked up on, how to do IP addressing, how to do, how to repair software. All the stuff that we did in that office was fairly basic. The routing wasn't terribly complex and firewalling wasn't complex. It was very basic networking stuff. This again would have been like 1999. So at the end of that week, after all the work was done, the director of the IT department said, I really appreciate your work ethic this week and coming in the way you did. Would you be interested in a job in the IT department? And I jumped at the chance. Before he even probably told me the hours. So when I tell you the hours, you're going to laugh. My first job in IT, I made $10 an hour. I worked Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. 3 12-hour shifts. And I still had to do my other job. I still had to do my phone job, answering the phones and making phone calls. But I would work my regular hours during the week and then just pick up these extra hours, so I would actually get overtime. I had a little phone I had to walk around with. So that's how I got into the IT department. During this time, I was actually saving money. My life was stable. I was going to the gym with a regular frequency, but certainly still not aware of bodybuilding. So fast forward a few years, I've moved to Fort Lauderdale, I've moved to Orlando, and I've just been getting into the computer more and more. And one day it occurred to me to type bodybuilding into the computer and just see what came up. And I found a video series by Lane Norton on bodybuilding.com called Life of a Natural Pro. If you guys aren't familiar with this, it's crazy to me that not everyone that watches this video has seen those videos. There's literally 30 videos where he coaches a couple bodybuilders to getting their pro cards. It just goes through the processes, interviewing some of the great natural bodybuilders of the time. And a light went off in my head. I was like, what is natural bodybuilding? I didn't know it existed. So I actually reached out to Lane Norton at this time. Lane and I ended up working together for my first show. At 32 years old, I did my first show. Still going to school for IT. Actually going back to school and getting my master's degree in business administration and technology management just for my career in IT, because I actually loved IT. I loved working with computers. It was something that I truly enjoyed. There was a different challenge every day. There was always something new to learn. So information technology, there's so many facets to that. It can mean so many different things, and I really enjoyed that there was always a challenge. In the company I was at, we actually did software support, and we developed simulators for air traffic controllers. And so I actually got to support some of that, travel around the world, go to some really cool Air Force bases. So I loved my job. And after working with Lane for a couple years, my physique really came to life. I understood nutrition. He answered all my questions about, how to get better at lifting. He showed me what nonlinear periodization was. It really kind of wiped the slate clean. I got rid of the mentality of listening to the bodybuilders in Flex magazine, and I just became more consistent. Deciding to compete in 2007 and doing the show in 2008 was the best thing that's ever happened to me, because it taught me so many life lessons. It taught me, I was a fairly competitive person, but when I decided to compete, it took me to a new level. I got better at time management. I think I became a better person, a better friend to my friends. I put down the alcohol several nights a week, which, wasn't a problem. I was just going out drinking with my friends, but, it doesn't go anywhere. Going out drinking with your friends doesn't lead to anything. It just leads to more drinking with your friends, and which is nothing wrong with that. But at a certain point in my life, I just wasn't happy doing that anymore. And bodybuilding gave me a really great sense of purpose. It was one of those things that when I started doing it, I think everyone around me noticed that I changed for the better. I just started enjoying life more. And so after a few years of competing, and I was very fortunate, I earned my pro status as a natural bodybuilder. And at all this time, I was posting on bodybuilding.com. I had threads that you can still find on there. From day one of my first transformation, my second, my third competition, I used to post on there so much. And I kind of built a reputation on there as, just a friendly guy who worked hard and got kind of lean. And after a couple of years, Lane moved to Florida, and he and I became friends. And so during that time, it was difficult to see him because I was, I always had a job. I always had to be at work Monday through Friday. And so when he would come to Orlando for a show, I would go, or, we would catch up as much as we could. But along the way, he started to say, hey, Paul, my business is really going crazy. I can't keep up with demand. I'm turning clients away by the dozens. Would you be interested in coaching? No, I had no interest in coaching. To me, it just seemed like it would be too difficult. Lane had this huge history, even though he was younger than me, he had this huge history of education and competing, and I just wasn't comfortable saying yes to that. And so it never occurred to me to be a coach. Well, a few months went by, and he contacted me and said, there's a kid that lives near you, and he paid for a big name IFBB pro coach to coach him in cash. And when he got the plan, he realized that it was just a cookie cutter plan that wasn't for him. And so he contacted the bodybuilder. His mom actually called him and said, we don't want to use your coaching. We don't really agree with it. so can we get our money back and we'll just, use another coach? And the guy said, nope, not only am I not coaching your son, but you're not getting your money back. And click, hung up the phone. So Lane said, would you be willing to work with him? Free of charge. And I thought, you know what, it's free of charge. No matter what happens, it's going to be better than what he would have gotten from this asshat of a coach anyway. The kid was obviously bright enough to know when he was getting something of low value. So what I did was I worked with him. And, I basically just, Lane was like, just do what I do, look over how I handle things. And so I just started coaching him. And after a few months, got on stage, and he did really well. Won his class, novice or teen, and that's kind of irrelevant. But what's relevant is I went to the show. It was near Orlando, and I went to the show. And after the show, his mom and his family and friends thanked me. They were like, "Thank you so much for helping, because without you, this wouldn't have happened. He's really enjoyed the process. You've done an amazing job." And I remember that feeling that night, thinking, wow, like, okay, I like this. I felt like I had done something to help someone else directly. And so my wife said, well, why don't you start a coaching business? Why don't you just see how it goes? And so I did. And so my wife and I went, and luckily for me, my wife is very good at all things businessy. She's always worked in the banking industry. So we went down and opened up a business bank account, and I took it seriously. I said, I'm going to give this a shot. And so we got the LLC name, Pro Physique, and I think I got a website set up, and a guy I work with at work, we kind of traded services. He helped me with my website. So I didn't intend for coaching to be my job. I thought I will just help people along the way while I do my IT job, still loving going to work. The one benefit of an IT job is, where do I sit all day, every day? In front of a computer. I never had to consciously make the decision, like, am I going to do this or that? Am I going to be an IT person, or am I going to be a coach? I never had to make that decision. I let it make it for itself. Now, at this point in my life, I'm in my 30s, I've got a girlfriend, I've got a car, I've got a house. I couldn't have just stopped what I was doing to be a coach. I had a career that I was very excited about. I had, been working my way up the quote-unquote corporate ladder for the better part of a decade, and I really enjoyed my job. I loved what I did. So I didn't set out to become a coach. That next year, when I let people know that I was coaching, I started getting a few client requests. Lane would refer me someone, and early on, it was very difficult to convince people to work with me, because they'd never heard of me, and the people that got referred to me through Lane, I would have to explain, because even at that time, Lane was a big name, but people weren't really jumping on the online coaching bandwagon. Technology had not really caught up with what coaches were capable of. And so I think the most important thing at that time that I was successful was because I was always available. I was always on the computer. If you emailed me, you were getting a reply that day, within probably a few minutes or hours, because I was literally at my desk from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. So yes, I was technically coaching while I was doing IT, but with IT, there's a lot of downtime. It's a lot of support and maintenance stuff, and if you're good at your job, you're actually pretty good at creating free time. And and there would be lulls where I would have a lot of free time. And so for the first year, that's how it went. I would get a couple clients. And the second year is when things really got interesting with me coaching. I think the first year, people started to hear my name in certain circles and be associated. And the second year is when I really noticed a large uptick, where my income started to increase, like doubling every month. And it was about this time that my wife got a job promotion, and she was my fiance at the time. And she got a job promotion, and found out that we were going to have the opportunity for her to make a lot of money working for Chase, so much so that she would actually be out earning me at my software, my IT job. And so we had an opportunity there where I could leave my job. And I was earning as much per month with my coaching job as I was in my IT job. But I was always waiting for the shoe to drop. You see, when you work for someone, you get a check every week. And that's a very safe feeling. You're also not responsible for anything as far as maintenance of a building or managing people or any of that stuff. You literally just go to work, go home, and you get a check. And that's a very nice, secure feeling, especially for someone like me who really always thought you go to college to get a degree, to get a good job, to go to work, to get paid, to buy stuff. I was in that mold for so long that it was really hard for me to leave. But after I ended up getting married to Misty, and this is another reason why she's an amazing person and has been such a great influence in my life, we ended up saying, let's do this. I will quit my job at a certain time. I put a timestamp on the desk. She took the job out of town in Jacksonville, Florida, and I said, okay, I'm going to quit on this date. And it was so hard for me. Let me just tell you, I really, truly loved my job. I didn't want to leave. And, it just became apparent that I needed to do it. So we rented a tiny little apartment in Jacksonville. When I tell you tiny, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, might have been 800 square feet. And the reason being is I was so paranoid about my job, about quitting, about, okay, I'm making X amount of dollars coaching, which was more than I was making in my IT job. But again, that's not going to last. In my head, that's not real life. That's just something that happened. I had one good month, right? I had a couple good months in a row, but at any time that could stop. There's any time. Well, so happens the month that I quit my job, Lane invited me to go to the Olympia, and he said his wife couldn't go. She was pregnant. So did I want to go to the Olympia? And I had never been to the Olympia. So I thought, yeah, I'll go to the Olympia with Lane Norton. And it's pretty cool because Lane Norton gets treated pretty well at the Olympia. He was doing the announcing that year. He got me a media pass. I was walking around backstage. I was walking around all the events at the expos. I was getting in really good seats for the bodybuilding shows. Walking around with Lane, shaking hands, meeting people, meeting his clients. And something strange happened when I got back from the Olympia. My business immediately doubled. And it didn't hit me until months later why that was. And I really believe a lot of it had to do with the perception that no longer was I a guy who coached. I was now a coach. I wasn't just a guy who had a career, had a job, and did some coaching on the side. I was now a full-time coach. And taking yourself seriously and anything you want to do is what's required to be successful. So think about that. If this is something you want to do, you might have to take a leap of faith. And you might have to learn how to live like a broke person, because I sure did that. I've driven the same car since 1999. I used to keep my rent under $500 a month. Even when I had a really good salary, I kept my bills low. And I think that allowed me to have a little bit more freedom. I think some people nowadays tend to try to live slightly above their budget. Not always great. You can kind of trap yourself in that. So I've always been able to get by with very little. And an online coaching business really doesn't require much. A good computer. I like to do some video editing. And that's pretty much all you need. You need to travel as much as you can, attend some shows, but it's a very low overhead business. So that was how I got into it. And for someone young who's just getting into the workforce, I would say try both. I mean, I loved IT, and I would probably still be doing it to this day had Lane not stepped in the picture. But one thing I'll say about when you're passionate about something, I think that's what came through for me is the people that know me and the people that were around me. Even when I played baseball in college, and even when I was working the bar, I was always doing fitness stuff. I was always going to the gym, always reading the magazines. I have hundreds of bodybuilding magazines sitting over there in a basket because I refuse to throw them away. I mean, because they're like $5 a magazine, and back when I was in college, that was a lot of money. So I literally have hundreds of Flex magazines and, you know, Muscle and Fitness and so many of those. And so I was passionate about it. I was always interested in nutrition. And now that I've turned into a full-time coach, now I attend seminars. Now I get to spend time with some of the greatest minds in the fitness industry. This weekend coming up is the Lane Norton VIP Muscle Camp. This is the 5th year. I get to hear presentations from Dr. Mike Zordos. Dr. Jeremy Leneke won't be there this year. Dr. Brian Whitaker is speaking. Dr. Dominic D'Agostino. A lot of doctors. Dr. Joe Clemzesi. Dr. Corey Probst. Don't get mad at me, Corey. I'm forgetting some. But these are some of the smartest minds in the fitness industry. And I don't care if you've never heard of them, because these are the people that are going to be shaping the future of the sport, and have been for a while. And so I'm very blessed because I get to understand aspects of nutrition and training that very few do. A lot of the coaches that coach nowadays, they're coaching based on how they were coached. They're giving out meal plans, and I think they're not paying close attention to what their clients are coming in with. They're not changing programs based on what they do specifically. And I've always taken pride in caring about each and every person as an individual. So I think if you are truly passionate about being a coach, it's going to take time. No one's going to work with you at 20 years old. It's going to take time for you to become a respected member of the fitness community, because that's what you said I am, right? But and hopefully that's something that will continue. But that's because I truly love what I'm doing, and I am going to do my best to provide the best possible services for my clients. And I think for you, it's going to take competing, attending seminars, lectures, find out who the people are that you respect, go see them speak to them, go to the, you know, as silly as it sounds, going to the Arnold, going to the Olympia, going to the USA Championships, going to the Arnold Australia. These events shape so much because I get to connect and talk to other coaches. Probably one of the most influential things I did this year was I spent 2 weeks with Eric Helms, who is doing his PhD in Auckland, New Zealand. And Eric is somebody I actually knew from the bodybuilding.com's message boards years ago. But spending time with him and getting to spend time with another high-level coach who understands things, you know, I changed the way I do some things after spending time with him. And, you know, that's something I plan to continue doing. I think if you're doing the same things year over year that you've been doing and you're not changing, then you're probably not the best coach you can be. And I think for you, Michael, if you're going to go into the IT field and get a career, the benefit of that is you're going to have the opportunity to be in front of a computer during the day. And you can go home and get on the computer at night, and you can go to the gym, and you can do your cardio, and you can be stable. And I think that's very valuable. Once I was in a stable career in my life was when I was able to actually explore my passion. Because as I said, it didn't really exist. And you don't know what the next 5 or 10 years is going to hold. You don't know what career opportunities are going to come because you start pursuing things nowadays. It blows my mind where I've gotten in the last few years. Working for myself has been one of the greatest pleasures of my life. The challenges, the things that I do now. I work way harder than I've ever worked when I worked for a company. And so much of that is just because I love what I do. And you know, people always say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Fuck that. You work way harder. You just enjoy the work. I embrace the grind. I enjoy the day-to-day operations. You know, I enjoy, part of my job is editing video, is putting posts on Instagram, is researching, it's reading books. I've got a whole bunch of books here. I'm going to school, you know, studying exercise science. Going to the gym, I consider that my job. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. I think it was a 30-minute clip. I'm going to load it to YouTube like this. I'm not even going to edit it. No fancy music. I hope you enjoyed this. I don't even know if I've given you what you were looking for. The point is, just start doing. Follow your passion. Just start doing things. Put yourself in position to be successful. And, just see where things take you. I loved IT. I love what I do now. And hey, I get to still play on computers if I want. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. It was a huge rant for my friend Michael here. Hopefully I gave him some insights. And if not, man, I'm just a long-winded guy. Anyway, guys, it's 11:22 now, so I've been talking for a while, but now I got to get back to work. I'm going to upload this video to YouTube, and hopefully somebody likes it. And if not, on to the next one. All right, guys, have a good night.